Obama out of office and get a Republican in there.
And very finally, just a word about the great job that the Ohio Republican Party has done in putting this all together.
Super job. All kinds of events around town, and a great event here tonight.
Thank you very much for your time. And we are at halftime here, folks, on Behind Enemy Lines. I want to thank everybody for tuning into the show. I'm Gene. I got Vito and Mona on the line with us. Russ is on a little bit of a break right now. And while I got you listening, be sure to check out www.BehindEnemyLinesRadio.us. Check us out on Facebook and on Twitter at BEL_radio. And right after you do that, go right to www.BrooklynYRS.com. That's the organization where this show grew out of. Check them out, support them. It's a great place to go to. I love going to their site. And of course, my site, BehindEnemyLinesRadio.us. Check us out on the interwebs. Bringing back Mona and Vito DiGiovanni from the Vito and Vito Show. Mona, of course, with PolitiChicks. Guys, time to start talking about the main event a little bit.
Dun, dun, dun.
And, of course, when you talk about the main event, you're talking Donald Trump, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, boy.
That guy, let me tell you something. I think Russ called him last week the Teflon Donald. Is there any... short of...
fan.
Well, he may be a little bit of a bandwagon fan, I'll give you that. But you know what? Short of a hooker in the trunk, or Jimmy Hoffa being found on Trump ground somewhere, can anything stop this guy?
Yeah, the truth.
I think if he keeps opening his mouth, I think the poll numbers will drop. Okay, there's no way he can keep going this long.
So you're of the mind that I'm kind of at, saying that sooner or later Donald Trump's going to say something so outrageous, and it's going to happen so often that he'll eventually be gone, and we won't hear from him anymore.
Hopefully, but I don't know if he's going to run third party.
Yeah, he will. I mark my words. That's a bet we're going to have. We should have a bet with all of us. Brooklyn, you down for that bet?
Yeah, you know what? I'll put the predictions online. Every time you want to have a prediction, I'll put it online, because what I did for this show, and this is actually a good segue for it, I took some of the predictions from last week's show that Russ and I made, and some of them came true, some of them didn't. Here's the first one that did come true about the ratings. Russell actually said this during the show.
Donald Trump, by the way, speaking of debate.
I have a prediction about Trump, too. Trump will not throw the first punch.
He might not, but this is great for the Republican Party. We finally got a celebrity on stage. This is going to be the most watched debate probably in presidential history. So
obviously you're listening to it on your end right now, but Russell said it. The most watched debate. Right now, but God, turn down your voice there, guys. There you go. Russell said it. The most watched debate in primary history, and it happened. Are you guys still with me or what?
We are.
If you're not,
but yeah. I mean, Donald Trump brought the rating. I think it broke records. Over 20 or 30 million people watched this. I mean, people I know who are definitely not politically involved, so they're definitely watching just to see what kind of stuff is going to come out of Donald's mouth.
But while they're watching Donald, they're also getting their eyeballs exposed, not in a dirty way, to the other candidates on the stage. I mean, this is the first time that a crowd this large has heard Ted Cruz speak. This is the first time a crowd this large has heard John Kasich speak. This is a crowd for the first time this large that heard Chris Christie speak. So say what you want about Donald Trump. This is a benefit for the Republican Party as a brand because more eyeballs got to see the Republican Party do what they do. I thought that was a good thing.
Absolutely. Different candidates can definitely take advantage of the opportunity, like Ted Cruz did, Ben Carson absolutely did. But, I don't think Rand Paul really did, because a lot of people say he came out too aggressive and was too much on the attack, coming after Trump and going after too many candidates. He was too much like a bulldog, and people kind of caught on to that and didn't really like it. But guys like Cruz and Carson kept their cool, kept the time, everything conformed, and knew what they were talking about. Really, I think, show what they're made of. And
don't forget Rubio. Rubio went up in the polls too.
Absolutely, Rubio too. So many candidates, you forget.
Let's talk about Marco Rubio for a second, Mona, because you went to an event before the debates with Marco Rubio there, and it seems like he may be, I would say, either the second or the third candidate out of the primetime debate that saw a real benefit from his performance.
Yeah, like we went to it was a rally in a bar. And it was like 400 people, and I would say over 90% of them were young millennials. And it was like really like, you know, the guy who the state chairman of the Ohio, I think he's the treasurer. He endorsed Rubio, and he's like literally like Russ and you, Gene H, like, and he's a former I think Army or Marine, and he endorsed Rubio for his presidency, and I think he became the Ohio chairman for Rubio's campaign. And a lot of millennials came out.
I believe that's Dave Yost, who's the treasurer of Ohio. I believe that's who we're talking about. I'll check it out later and
No.
correct if
He's
we
the
need
treasurer, but he became the chairman of Rubio's campaign for Ohio.
I'm not great on my Ohio.
Oh, I understand. Okay. Yeah. I got you now. Well, yeah, I mean, and you said young crowd, and that's kind of what people want to tap into when you're on the campaign trail. I know that the over 65 crowd is the one that most reliably votes. But the next generation of voters, if you're not interested now, listen, I don't know what's going to get you interested. You have probably the best field ever in the history of the Republican Party running for office. If you're not excited about this, Vito, you don't belong following politics.
I mean, it's hard enough to get people involved in politics, but when you get Donald Trump running, how can you not watch and pay attention? But you definitely see Marco Rubio getting the young vote. People thought Rand Paul would do the same, but you know, he's not having as much luck with the millennials. But Rubio definitely had a lot of support in Ohio. We saw that he packed that place, and he's really popular with the young millennials.
Well, you need to go look at Rand Paul's communication director person. He literally attacked Fiorina before the debate. I forgot to tell you guys. He found Fiorina's script of her like announcement or whatever, like for her pre-debate, and he blasted it on Twitter. It's really like embarrassing. Like, really gonna go after a lady because she was like prepping for the debate? At least she prepped.
You know, speaking of Rand Paul, some comments in the chat room saying that Rand Paul is done, that he came out a loser of the debate. Did Rand Paul do himself a disservice? Did he lose in this first round of debates? Either one of you guys.
I mean, I believe he's down to 3%. His poll numbers definitely got hurt, but he came out too aggressive. I mean, he nailed it on the government getting too involved with your life. You know, with the Fourth Amendment with Chris Christie, that's his thing. We always know that about Rand Paul, but the rest of the debate, he was just too aggressive, and he definitely came off the wrong way. I think it hurt him in the long run.
Well, Russell and I talked about Rand Paul in our prediction portion last week. Let's see what we said about him.
I think Rand Paul will do well in this debate.
I disagree.
Why?
I think Rand Paul gets lost in the shuffle.
I don't think so. Rand Paul, and you've been to lots of these things, Gene, the poll bots are there. In force.
Totally. They're going to be there.
In mass. So as soon as Paul says something that these poll bots are passionate about, he's going to get the cheers and the jeers, and it's going to sound like he's doing great. I think Paul does good in the debate.
So Russ thought he was going to do good. I was not sold on it, but I was on for different reasons. Listen, and if you heard the exchange between Christie and Paul, the crowd did rally behind Rand Paul because he sounded like one of the Paul bots that we all ran into at every single event that we go to. You know, read the Bill of Rights, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, 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 like they always do all the time in trying to shout down an opposition voice to what they're saying. So, I think Russ was wrong on this one. I think I was kind of right. Rand Paul did not come out on top, especially with that exchange with Chris Christie. Say what you want about Chris Christie, Rhino, whatever you want to call him. He did better in that exchange than Rand Paul did. I don't know if it won him any points, though. What do you guys think? Mona, let's start with you. What do you guys think about the exchange between Christie and Paul?
Well, but let's go back 15 seconds into the debate. Rand had every right to be like, why are you going to run third party? So I think he won that part because Trump, like he said before, he was not going to do it. And then he raises his hand. And then Rand had every right to go on defense and be like, you know, attack him like, why? So you're placing bets on Hillary to win the nomination? So as for the exchange with Christie, I think he won that part.
What do you think? Who won? Rand?
Rand, yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
Look at the crowd. Look at the crowd. How when he was like, I know you want to go hug President Obama, and everybody went crazy, laughing, hysterical, cheering him on because they remember what happened in 2012.
Now, is that a result of the Rand Paul supporters being in mass, or is that because he was right?
I think in the debate, it was not only Rand Paul supporter; it was everybody there. There was a lot of older people in the watch party. There was a lot of older people in the debate, and they all were happy about that little red piece segment.
Okay. Well, speaking of Chris Christie, here's what I had to say last week about which Chris Christie would show up. The kindly, gentler one, or the prosecutor provocateur that we all know here in the Northeast. Take a listen to my prediction. I actually got one right. But who fires the first shot in the debate? Because it's all going to be friendly and congenial in the beginning, but then someone's going to step over the line.
I think that Jeb Bush throws the first punch. Jeb Bush has the most to lose.
Nope, I disagree with you. Chris Christie's going to throw the first punch. He's pugnacious. He confronts people. He's a prosecutor.
I don't know.
Well, I did know, Russ, so take that one. That's one for Gene. Put it on the tote board. I beat Russ Gallen in a prediction. Chris Christie, did he win any support during this debate, guys? Vito, start with you.
I personally don't think so. Chris Christie lowered the numbers of the polls. His big thing was with Rand Paul, that exchange. But just too many candidates really to have anyone speak their mind too much. I don't think Christie had too big of an impact this time around.
I don't think he had no impact. Like, if you look at, like, the 10-stage debate, you can see, like, Ted Cruz nailed it, Carson nailed it, Rubio nailed it. But there's no talk about Christie. The only thing to talk about is Christie and Rand. Everything else is just, like, lost in the white pages, you can say.
Yeah, the white noise of the
white
debate.
Noise.
Now, it's because you have 10 people on the stage, and you'll have a limited amount of time for each of them to have their moment. Did anybody do themselves a disservice during the primetime debate? Or did everybody have their nice little moment to keep themselves either in neutral or moving a little bit forward? Did anybody do really badly, in your opinion, Vito?
I think Rand Paul. You know, I do like him, but I think he came out too aggressive, and it hurt him in the long run. You saw his poll numbers took a hit. I think he came off way too aggressive. He didn't want to come out, and I think he definitely lost this debate, and it shows that it hurt him.
I'll add one other name to who lost the debate, and someone we haven't talked about yet, surprisingly, so far into this show, Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush was robotic. He was over-rehearsed. He looked awkward. He looked tentative. He did not come off as presidential. Mona, what did you think of Jeb Bush?
I think he was scared that Donald was gonna attack him. That's why, like, everybody, like, including Eugene, wore all black during that debate because they thought they were gonna see a funeral massacre because of the Donald. And he was literally scared about that. So I think he was just, like, literally hiding in the corner hoping, like, nobody would attack him. And he literally got away with murder that day.
Some people in the chat room are thinking I stole their line. I have my own script here, folks, okay? So let's not, I don't always steal your ideas in the chat room. By the way, the chat room's hopping. I want to thank everybody for participating in there. I want to know from the chat room, of course, and here's where I'll steal from you. Who won, who lost, and who was meh? That's what I want. Won, lost, and meh. Give it to me in the chat room, and we'll take a few of you from in there, and we'll put it up on the board here. We'll steal some of your stuff. I mean, borrow some of your stuff.
Oh, we'll just ignore it, like always.
Now, okay, exactly. Who had the best moment on the stage? For me, I'll put it out there. I don't want to influence anybody. The best moment for me on the stage was Ben Carson's closing speech, when he talked about all the firsts that he had in compared to the other candidates, and he went off onto his medical background. I thought that was a feel-good moment, and I thought that endeared a lot of voters who really don't care about policy but want to care about personality. Ben Carson endeared himself to a lot of voters.
Damn it, Gene, you stole my talking points.
Listen, you gotta read my script before the show. Show prep. Keep telling everybody, show prep. But what'd you think of Carson's closing remarks?
It was phenomenal, like the fact that he said, like, I literally removed half the brain before, and he was like, you wouldn't even know if you were in Washington. He literally like dissed like half the senators there. And I like the fact when like Megyn Kelly finally asked a question, he was like, hey, thanks for remembering me 45 minutes later. I was like, oh, KO, Ben Carson.
And this debate was about that KO moment. I think Ben Carson realized that. Amanda Cohut in the chat room just said, excellence in soundbitery for Ben Carson in talking about, the high points of the debate.
She says Cruz won. Somebody who does not like Cruz actually says he won the debate.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Ted.
About to have a heart attack.
And let's talk about Ted Cruz for a moment, because we have some in the chat room. Ted Cruz was a winner. Some in